Welcome to the Honest Dog Breeder Podcast with me, your host, Julie Swan, where each week we dive in to discuss all things dog breeding so you can build a breeding business you love, producing dogs that fulfill their owners' dreams. I believe you can have an honest dog breeding program that also pays the bills. So throw those pods in your ears while you're cleaning kennels. I'd love to join you. You guys are in for a treat today. Today we have Kim Crawmer of Prancing Pony Farm. You breed Maremma livestock guardian dogs. Thanks so much for coming on the show, Kim.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so tell us, you breed livestock guardian dogs, but this is not where everything started. Can you tell us how did you get into breeding?
All my life, I've been an animal fanatic, particularly dogs, but all types of animals. I drove my parents crazy probably most of my life. We always had, my parents would go get dogs from the dog pound. So we had lots of different breeds and they would get these dogs. My dad would actually take us dog shopping at the dog pound, look at all the different dogs, pick one or two to bring home. And then as soon as they got tired of them, they would take them back or dump them off or get rid of them or whatever. So we had a lot of dogs, but we didn't really get to keep very many of them very long. The first dog was a boxer my dad had when I was a baby, when I was born. So yeah, I always loved dogs and I always loved farms and farm animals. I don't know why. And wanted a farm. And my grandparents had I'm from Memphis. I'm a city girl, was a city girl. But my grandparents had a little homestead in Kentucky. So we would go there all the time, summers and weekends, and they had chickens and, rabbits and whatever. So that was probably where the bug started. And I always loved horses and I always asked for a horse. And of course, the answer was always no. And then when I was 14, and another thing that I forgot, I loved Lady and the Tramp. That was my favorite movie ever. So I loved Daniels. So when I was, yeah, that's where. So when I was 14, my brother came home and told me he found this pet shop and they had some ducks there. It was near Easter and they had ducks. So I went to the pet shop to see the ducks. And I noticed there was dog hair everywhere. It was actually a grooming shop. It wasn't really a pet shop, but they had a few little things. And I asked them if they would hire me to sweep up the dog hair. And they said, no, but we need somebody to bathe and brush dogs. Would you be interested in doing that? And so I was like, of course. So that's when I started learning how to be a dog groomer. I started out bathing and brushing. I think I made $15 a day just working on Saturdays. And so I started there and I eventually got trained to be a groomer and everything. And I also around that time had bought my first Cocker Spaniel, bought it myself, or maybe my parents bought that one for me. I can't remember, but got my first Cocker Spaniel. And so it just went from there. Dogs, I started breeding Cockers. My boss that I worked for had horses. She had Arabian horses. So of course I was in heaven because she would take me out to see her horses and everything. And I ended up buying my first horse through knowing her and everything. Bought it with my own money. Basically, that was the gateway to everything. My parents couldn't buy me a horse. I just got a job and bought my own, paid for it, all its care and everything, and just went from there. So I bred the Cockers for a while until like after I was married. I got married when I was 19. We moved to Florida. My husband was in the Navy. And so did the Cockers and everything, had the horses. We had two Arabian horses that we drug all over the country. And I always wanted this farm, but because I married a man in the Navy,
I know.
it got delayed. It got delayed. I didn't realize his Navy career was going to be 40 years.
Oh.
He was 10 years into it when he's older than me. 30 years he was in while we were married. So my farm dreams all got put off for quite a while.
Wow.
Quite a while. So yeah, I didn't get, we did have a farm in Virginia for a little while. And we ended up back here. So I was always going to have a farm. It just got put off for a really long time.
Yeah. And so did you just breed Cockers for a few years when you were?
So I bred them. I even had a litter in Guam. We lived in Guam for a while and I had a litter over there. And so my oldest son, he was born over there. I probably bred them 15 years or so, 10 to 15.
Wow.
I can't remember.
Mhm.
At some point, it got to where, because I have 6 kids and I was homeschooling. So it got to a point where I was too busy. I was also grooming dogs. I had a grooming business in Guam, which was really fantastic because for a while there were no other groomers on Guam at all. Like at one, in
Right.
part of the time there was one, and besides me, and then she went back to the States and there was none. So I had all the business I wanted, and I groomed there, had a grooming business in my home. They encourage home businesses. So I had that, and I bred one litter over there. And then literally we were leaving the island and I had people calling me up, can you groom my dog? Can you groom my dog? I was like, we're leaving. Going back to the States. So I did a little bit in my home in Florida too. But as I had more babies and busy with homeschooling and everything, it just got like I'm lucky to groom my own dogs.
Yeah.
And my cockers had got aged out and I didn't have other ones. And just so I don't even remember. Probably we were in Maryland when I had uh, kind of phased out of the of the breeding and the
Yeah.
grooming. Um, and I didn't have a cocker for a while. When our last cocker died, I don't remember how long ago it was, but when our last cocker spaniel died, well, it was here in California,
Mhm.
but it's probably 10 years ago. I didn't have one for a long time. And I never had a dog breed. Like as a groomer, I was exposed to a lot of different breeds. I could really learn about different breeds. I could learn, okay, this is a really pretty dog, whatever, but its temperament is this way or that way, whatever. So I learned about a lot of different breeds. I really liked a lot of different breeds, but there was never a breed I wanted to breed. I might want it as a pet, but not enough to breed like cockers. Cockers are my first love of dogs. And it wasn't until many years later when I got them, because we had a Yorkie, we had boxers, we have a Shih Tzu. So we've had different breeds, but I never had an interest in breeding them until I got the Maremmas. And I was
Mhm.
like, this is it. This
Yeah.
is my new
And
dog.
what caught your attention about them that made you finally want to breed them?
So we bought our farm here. We bought it December 2015 and we moved in 2016. Well, we moved into 15, but our animals moved in the begin in January of 16. We had or actually, no, it was like 4 horses, I think, that were being boarded. We'd always boarded our horses. So we brought our horses back. I had already bought goats that I was planning to bring home. We went to Disneyland one last little trip before we brought all the animals home. And then we will never be able to leave the farm again. So let's go now. So we brought the horses home in January, and we brought the goats and everything. And I knew I needed a livestock guardian dog, because I knew, like, living here, there's coyotes and places where I would board my horses. It was like, if you leave the chickens outside one night and forget to put them in, they'll be dead the next day. You won't have chickens, because coyotes will just come and get them. And I always loved Australian Shepherds, and I always thought that's probably the breed I'll have when I have a farm. But because I always had my horses at boarding stables, and most people that own stables have herding dogs. And I started watching those dogs and I realized that's not the kind of dog you want to have around goats and chickens and those type of animals, because all they do is herd, bite, chase. They're just being their normal thing. And I didn't even really know what a livestock guardian dog was, but I started reading and researching and learning, oh, I need a livestock guardian dog, not a herding dog. So I already knew I was going to get one
Mhm.
because I didn't want my new goats to get eaten.
Right.
And so, but I didn't really know anything about the different breeds. Like I knew what Great Pyrenees were because we groomed some here and there. So I started researching different types of livestock guardian dogs and what to get and whatever. And I went to Craigslist, not the place you want to get a dog, but the only place I knew of. And I was contacting breeders that were on there. And there was one breeder that had Great Pyrenees, and there was one breeder that had Maremmas. And I was talking to both of them at the same time. The Great Pyrenees breeder did breed registered Great Pyrenees. Her dogs were more expensive. And then the Maremma breeder, his dogs were registered, but he wasn't selling the puppies as registered.
Mm.
He just didn't want to bother with registration, so he was selling them unregistered, but the parents were registered and they were with the Maremma Club, which at the time I didn't even know what that was. Um, So anyway, I was talking to these two breeders, and everything the Great Pyrenees breeder was telling me, and the Maremma breeder, he would say, Great Pyrenees have this really bad thing about wandering. They're really hard to contain. They call them the great wanderees because they're always escaping and wandering. And then she would say, "Well, it just takes 6 strands of barbed wire and a couple of hot wires, and you keep them in." And so she was like trying to like say it's not that big a deal, but I'm like, that's a lot of work. So and it's just everything he was saying was like Maremmas are the breed you want. So he convinced me that they
Mhm.
were the breed, and she actually helped convince me that they also were the breed. Like he would say, Maremmas haven't been used as show dogs as much and as pets, so they tend to have more of a working instinct.
Mhm.
Whereas we've had Great Pyrenees so long as companions and pets and whatever, and sometimes they don't have the temperament. And she'd say, "Well, I had this one dog that ate a goat, but the other one's fine." Or and I'm like, "No, I think I want a Maremma."
Yeah.
So yeah, so it was and we bought Olaf. He was our first Maremma. He was 5 months old, and the breeder brought him here. He had been very well raised with livestock. That the breeder raises Angora goats.
Mhm.
And so he had a really good puppy socialization with the livestock. He didn't get a really good socialization with humans and experiences and all that. So that's something I learned later. He could be a little quirky, because of that, but he's a great dog. So we brought him home, and that getting to see these dogs, we have not long after we added Genevieve, our second unregistered Maremma, because Olaf needed a partner. I learned later all livestock guardian dogs need a partner. Um, and really, it was just watching the dogs and seeing what they do. A dog that would lay down its life to protect an animal of another species. There's just something so admirable about that. And that was what was like, oh, I think I might want to breed these dogs, you
Yeah.
know? And I really had my first litter just as an experiment to see.
Sure.
I figured if I didn't sell them, I would keep them because I needed more livestock guardian dogs. But
Mhm.
if it worked out, we'd see. And
Yeah.
it was wonderful. It was just amazing.
Mhm.
I'm still in contact with at least one person from that very first litter. There's this dog named Oliver. He's amazing. He's just amazing. That was born in 2017, and it's just so cool to see how these dogs, what they do,
Yeah,
how they,
exactly.
how they bond with a chicken, a sheep, a goat, whatever,
Yeah,
an
it
alpaca.
is incredible. Their natural instinct is just something so strong. And I think what is hard, they're independent thinkers. They need to be able to work by
Yes,
themselves because you're probably sleeping inside while they're doing their biggest job, and that's the idea, right?
right. Or
So,
predators are more active at night,
yes,
so
exactly. And I think that is a turn off for some people who are looking at them as companions because they think, well, I want a dog who needs me. But it's like these dogs don't need you. They like you, but they don't need you.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I have one Maremma that lives in the house. He's in the dog bed there. That's what he does all day long. He's just in his dog bed. He
Yeah.
likes to be right by the back door so he can
I,
run out in the backyard if something
yeah.
comes, or he can be in the house. If my grandkids spend the night, he sleeps right by their bed. He wants to be
Oh,
protecting them. But
that's,
he's even the dogs outside during the day, they're just kind of catnapping. They're ready for action. They're ready to hang out if you come out. But they're not like I noticed the Cocker Spaniel, she follows me everywhere I go. The other dogs that we have
hmm.
a Shih Tzu and a Boxer, they will eventually come back to see what you're doing. Titus will stay in his dog bed. He hardly ever comes back to the back of the house. He's like, I know you're here. I know everything's safe. I like being around you, but they're not clingy and needy. So if somebody wants a dog that's a friendly and affectionate, but not constantly, like you're not going to get separation anxiety from a Marimba.
Right? Yeah. Oh, I just think it's so incredible what they do and their temperament. They're wonderful. And I love their face structure. I don't know. I've always liked theirs the most out of the livestock guardian dog.
Yeah, I do. Titus.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So you originally bought unregistered, but you've now switched to registered dogs. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah, yeah. So
So
we
what
had
happened with that switch? What was going through your head?
um so we bought Olaf first, and then a few months later we bought Genevieve, and I decided to breed, and we had a litter. We had a litter in 17, 18, and 19 from Jenny, and then she ended up with another litter, I think in 21. Anyway, um, I was wanting to get it into breeding more, and it was really hard to find a Maremma. Like everybody, just finding one was hard, and they weren't registered. So it got to this point. Well, first of all, most of the dogs I was finding in California were coming from the same breeder I bought Olaf from. So I was like, I'm trying to search out the genetics of the dogs that I'm contacting people about to make sure, one, that they're actually Maremmas, and two, that they're not related to my dog, because I didn't want to inbreed. And so I couldn't tell for sure. Like a lot of people just wouldn't know. I don't know. I got them from Susie Q. They didn't really know who they got their dog from. They didn't know really who it was related to or whatever. And then I also kind of had this feeling that Maremmas were kind of getting popular, and that some people might be saying it was a Maremma when it really wasn't. And I really wanted a Maremma. I did not want a peer. I did not want, I just wanted a Maremma. So I started kind of looking at registered dogs just because I would know what I was getting. I didn't even really know that the Maremma Club existed, because they're not an AKC breed. So you can't go on AKC Marketplace and find one. They're Maremma Sheepdog Club of America. So at some point I found out about the Maremma Club, and I was like, I think I need to probably get a registered dog, because then I'll know it's a Maremma and I'll know who its parents are and all of that. So I found out about that and started contacting Maremma breeders, and there weren't that many. Like there's a lot now, but there were very few back then. And nobody would sell me a dog because I had unregistered dogs. And I'm like, well, and I was at first just looking for a female. I had another female. I did end up buying one of Genevieve's sisters, a younger sister. So I had another female, but I was wanting to kind of expand out more. And I was considering just getting another female to breed to Olaf. And obviously I didn't understand at the time, but nobody wanted to take their well-bred registered female Maremma and have me breed it to my unregistered dog. I was very offended by it, but I understand it now as a breeder, because I'm super picky, about now I get it. So it was hard, and my feelings were hurt, whatever. But I started kind of looking around. There was a breeder in Arizona. She was like, no, if you get your male dog neutered, I'll sell you a puppy, but I'm not going to sell you a puppy, whatever. And I contacted finally, and also what I was also trying to do is I was trying to get my Olaf registered, because he was eligible to be registered. And I had come in contact with a person who had also bought dogs from that breeder, and she had been able to convince the breeder to register the litter so she could register her dog. And she told me, contact him, he might do that for you. So I contacted him. He wouldn't help me, he wouldn't reply, he just wouldn't even bother. And she told me that she had contacted the Maremma Sheepdog Club, and they had helped her convince the breeder to register her dog. So she said, you should contact them and see if they can help you. So that's what I did. I called the number for the club, and I talked to the person who was the secretary of the club at the time, and told her about my whole story and everything. And in the beginning, they were interested in helping me, but it never panned out. So basically, that's how it went. It never panned out. I never was able to get him, because they couldn't force it. And if the breeder he just wasn't interested. But that person that I talked to, she started talking to me about health testing and all this stuff that I didn't really know about. So it kind of sparked interest in that. And, it still took me a long time. I couldn't get somebody to sell me a dog, whatever. But eventually I got my first Maremma. Eventually I got my first registered Maremma. And that was like the gateway. Once you have one, then other breeders are like, oh, well, maybe we'll sell her a dog, whatever.
Right.
So,
Yeah, the gateway.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I still had the unregistered dogs at the time. So, but once I had that first registered dog, it just went from there.
That's good.
Yeah. And I think I had my last unregistered litter in 2021, but I had my first registered litter December 2020. So I was in this little transitional phase where I was kind of breeding both. And eventually, my unregistered Maremmas are fantastic livestock guardian dogs. They absolutely are amazing. And actually, that's a thing that I learned that really shocked me when I did get into the registered dogs. Not all of those dogs are good livestock guardian dogs, mainly because some of the breeders are not socializing their puppies with livestock, or their dogs are not even livestock guardian dogs, really. They're just kind of like estate guardians. So they have these beautiful dogs. They might be health tested, they might be very well bred, but they're not really getting what they need. It takes nature
Yeah.
and nurture.
They don't have the instinct for it, and
They
then
don't-
they're being raised with
Yeah,
livestock. Yeah.
right. The puppies have critical socialization periods when they really need to be exposed to everything you want them to be exposed to. And if it's a livestock guardian dog, that's really important. They need to be with livestock at a minimum by 3 to 4 weeks of age. If you wait till they're 8 or 9 weeks of age, it's kind of too late. And by 12 weeks, it's definitely too late. So I've got dogs from different breeders, and the breeders who raise their puppies the way I raise my puppies, those dogs are fantastic livestock guardian dogs. The breeders who raise their dogs on their patios or by their pool or whatever, they're beautiful dogs, and they eventually might become okay livestock guardian dogs, but they're never really great livestock guardian dogs. So
Mm.
that was what I noticed. And it was a shock. I was like, doesn't everybody raise their puppies in a barn? Like,
Really not. No,
no,
no. I think,
apparently not.
yeah,
So,
I think it
so
is
yeah,
really an interesting, it's an interesting world. LGDs as a whole, livestock guardian dogs are it's a very different world, right? Because you have a lot of farmers and they're like, oh, well, I breed pigs, I breed sheep, chickens, whatever. I'll just breed these dogs too,
yep.
just another source of income. And it's different, right? Like, why is it different? Can you elaborate?
Yeah, they do. I've had people say, well, why wouldn't I breed my dogs? I'm breeding my goats or sheep or whatever. And yeah, it's different. I say very bluntly, it's different because if your goat or your chicken or your sheep or whatever, if something messes up, doesn't work out, defects or temperament problems or whatever, you can eat it, or you can send it to the sale and somebody can eat it. We don't eat dogs here. you know, it's to me, it's very unethical to breed dogs if you really don't know what you're doing or have at least a good plan or idea,
Yeah.
health testing and temperament and training and socialization and all that stuff is so important for dogs. Dogs are different. They're just the way we have them in our society. Even a livestock guardian dog is still a companion to some degree, because dogs are so bonded with people,
Yeah.
how I mean, even from the beginning, dogs came into us as scavengers to say, hey, we see what you got and we want it, so we might be friendly with you, like,
Right.
so we can have this mutual relationship. So
Yeah.
where with other animals, we kind of had to catch them and kind of had to catch the horse and get it to be tame, or the
Right. Well, they're
sheep or
not
whatever.
they're not a prey animal at all. I
Right.
mean, dogs
Prey
are
animals are
predators, and I
different.
think that's what changes it too. You can't they need more management, they need a job, they need something to do, and I think it is different. And I do see that a lot. Like you said, Craigslist. I mean, I remember flipping through Craigslist looking for LGDs back in the day, and you yes, you want something that works. And I think there's a lot of because you probably run into this a lot. So because you have these people who are like, oh, I'll just breed my two dogs. I breed everything else in my house. So there becomes
Right.
a lot of supply in the market. And it's sort
Yep.
of, a lot of those people, they're like, oh yeah, I'll sell them for $500, no problem. And like
Right.
they've really reduced the price that these puppies go for. And of course, they aren't health testing. They're not registered. They're maybe raised correctly, maybe not. They probably won't be there to support you later.
Oh
You know,
yeah, that's big.
so do you find though that because of that, like the price, people are probably coming to you being like, I just saw these dogs on Craigslist for $500. Yours are so much more. Why should I pay
Yep.
more?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big thing. And even people that are breeding registered dogs, and even people that are doing some of the things like health testing, maybe have nice quality dogs. Even a lot of them, there's this thing. Somebody made a comment, a breeder had this kind of as their marketing thing, and I kind of took it and went with it, but went the other way. They were like, puppies need to be affordable because farmers can't afford an expensive dog. And I was like, I am not, my thing is you cannot afford an affordable dog, because an affordable dog is going to have health problems, or it's going to have temperament problems, or it's going to be neurotic with people or something. Most of these breeders, they might be doing some of the part, they might be doing good health testing or whatever, but they're not doing all the socialization, or they might be socialization well with livestock, but not with like people, and all the things we do, puppy culture and all that stuff. They're not doing that stuff. So their puppies might be good with livestock, but not like scared of people and scared of the car and things like that. Or they might be raising them as companions, really, like in their backyard or their patio or whatever. But those puppies never saw a chicken or a goat or anything like that in their life till you brought them home. And then they were like I had that with dogs that I got at 4 months old, and I brought them home to my farm, and they were like, where is my pool? Where is my jacuzzi? What are these weird looking animals that you are trying to get me to be with? Like they don't understand. So most of the breeders, they're just doing whatever works for them. And then the owner has to clean up the mess, like, so they sell their dogs for less because they don't want to, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to really raise quality dogs in general. And then livestock guardian dogs to me are different than companion dogs. And I do sell puppies to companion homes sometimes, but I call them not companions just because mostly that's what they're going for, is working dogs. They're different because you're good. If you buy a dog that you're only going to have it as a pet, you just need to acclimate that dog into your life. It just needs to be a good pet. Be safe with your kids, be safe with your family, whatever. If you're buying a livestock guardian dog, it needs to be all those things, and it also needs to go in with other animals and do its job and not become the predator. Like you don't want it eating your chickens and chasing your sheep or whatever. So it's a whole different thing. And a lot of people are breeding those dogs and they're just not getting some part of the equation right. So they sell them affordably, so that, because their dogs are not worth more money, because they're not putting that into them. But then those people come to me and they're like, oh my gosh, I got this, because I have a Facebook group that has a couple thousand people on it, and that people come to my website and they find me and they come to me with their problems.
Well, tell me,
The
what is your Facebook group? What is it for? Who is it for?
It's for anybody that either has a Maremma or is interested in Maremmas or livestock guarding dogs in
It's more
general.
like
It's
the
called,
owners. It's like an owners group, but it's not just your owners, it's people of the breed.
right, anybody. Yeah, yeah, anybody. We have members, a lot of members from like Australia and other countries. A lot of Maremmas are very popular in Australia and New Zealand.
That's cool.
So there's a lot of members from there. There's all over. So it's mostly owners, but you could have any type of, we let anybody join. You don't even have to have, we let anybody join, but we're very particular. Like there's no bullying, there's no spamming, there's no talking about any kind of aversive training. It's not allowed. There's no saying my dog's a jerk, none of that. It's a safe space.
That's
It's a
nice.
safe
Yeah.
space, but you can share your cute puppy pictures. You can't advertise puppies, but you can share cute pictures, whatever. Post your questions about training. It's a lot of stuff about training and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you
My
start
dog,
to get a bunch of people coming to you, right? Looking for training tips because they did buy the sort of maybe kind of started dog.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So they come like, oh, my dog's doing this and that, and what do I do and whatever. So that, and I get people. I had a really sad situation where somebody bought two dogs from just a backyard breeder who, affordable puppies, and one of them is having total hip replacement. Just it's just awful. Like she can barely walk, like, and she told me, she said she knows that she didn't buy from the right breeder. She knows that now. She didn't understand at the time. She loves her dog. It won't be a livestock guardian dog. That's the thing. If you get a dog and it ends up with, bad hips or whatever, and you needed it to do a job, it can't do that job now. I know of people who've bought these dogs who, I know of one breeder in particular who breeds Maremmas, and her first Maremma came from another registered Maremma breeder, code of ethics breeder actually. And it ended up with hip dysplasia, which happens. It happens. Like I could produce puppies with bad hips because hip dysplasia is a complicated, it's genetics and it's environment. But anyway, she has this dog and he has to come inside every night and rest because he can't work full time, because it's too much on his joints. So, and she runs a chicken farm, like a big chicken farm. So she had to get other dogs to replace that dog, is my point. Like if you got a dog and it ended up with problems, now it can't do what you got it to do. And you have vet bills and all that stuff. So this person who had contacted me, she said, luckily, she has the money to pay. This dog is going to cost her thousands and thousands of dollars. Like, I don't know, $20,000 or something for all the stuff that it needs. She loves her dog, so she's going to do it, and she can afford it. But I don't know what she paid for her dog. We didn't get into that, but I'm going to guess $500 to $1,000. Did she really save money by getting that affordable dog? She
Right.
didn't,
Right.
and she knows it. And she's just coming to me asking for advice, and she also has some training issues with the dog. But yeah, that's the type of stuff I hear all the time. And I'm like, you can't fix the health problems, So that's really a big one. If you just can't fix it, you can accommodate for it, but you can't fix it. But the training stuff, sometimes you can help with the training if you have. I went through the Karen Pryor Academy professional training program. So, and I take all kinds of legs, applied ethology, licensed family dog mediator, taken lots and lots of dog training courses, dog behavior courses. So I know how to help my clients. I know how to train my dogs. I know how to help other people. Most breeders have no clue. They haven't done any of that. But you could find the best trainer in the world if you have a dog, that has issues. But what happened? The most important thing is where you got your dog. The most important thing is what happens to that puppy before it's 12 weeks old. Even before it's 8 or 9 weeks old. Puppies have critical socialization windows
Mhm.
starting at about 3 weeks old, and it ends about somewhere between 12 and 16 weeks. If your puppy didn't get livestock socialization, or it didn't get socialization with people, or,
Mhm.
positive association with people, experiences, all that, you can never truly make up for that. You can help it some with some training, but you can't
Yeah, I
fix it.
think you pointed it out. Like you can never out train bad breeding.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
I think that was such a great thing that you said to me the other day because it is true. Like you really can't. I always found it really interesting when people were like, I'm gonna rescue my livestock guardian
Right.
dog. I'm like, chances are, if it's in a rescue, it already had problems or it ate one of their like. That seems like a really
Yeah.
bad way to find a way to protect your animals. And it's. I know those dogs need
Yeah.
places to go, and I know they need homes, but it
Yeah.
always really was a misunderstanding to me that people did not put together that any dog will
Right.
do.
Right. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. I mean, I get people saying, why don't you just rescue dogs and train them? I'm not that good of a trainer. There's no way. I can't fix the problem somebody else created. But if I start my puppies properly, then they're just amazing. And yeah, 30% of livestock guardian dogs fail. That means they wash out, they get dumped off, they get abandoned, they get taken to the dog pound, whatever. And I can guarantee you that 30% is mostly due to training problems.
yeah.
So, and those dogs are the ones that are mostly, I mean, some of them are dogs that somebody sold their farm and doesn't want the dog anymore or whatever, but
Yeah, but
a
that'd be
lot of it is,
unusual,
yeah,
right? That would,
unusual, but because they're going to sell it to another farm or give it to another farm or whatever. Most of the time it's the dog just didn't get the proper socialization and didn't get the proper training and whatever. And they started, this is what happens. People buy a dog for 500 or $1,000. The dog didn't get all the training and stuff as a puppy, the socialization. The breeder provides absolutely no support. It is like, I got your money. Thank you. Bye. I don't ever want to hear from you again. So most people that are buying livestock guardian dogs are first-time owners who have no clue. They're new farmers who are just figuring out farming to begin with, and now they're trying to add a dog in with their livestock, and when they have problems, the only place they have to go is Facebook, which is terrible. Like, I have a Facebook group, but most of the Facebook groups are just a mess. There's some good stuff, but there's so much bad stuff, and you're trying to weed through it and whatever. So they have problems, and then it gets to a point where they just can't figure it out. And this dog is chasing their animals, maybe killing stuff, whatever. So they just figure, well, I'm gonna cut my losses. I'm gonna take this dog and dump it off, and I'll start over with another affordable dog. You
Yeah.
know, it's
Oh,
it's bad for the dogs, it's bad for the people, it's bad for the livestock. Only person who's benefiting is that unethical breeder who made a quick buck.
which we could argue if they just did it right, they could make a lot more money. So
They
there's
could, but they
that.
don't want to because it is a lot of work. It's a lot.
So how do you have those conversations with people? Do they find you after they've had a bad experience? Is that like a lot of people coming to you where you get them to raise that price, or how does that go?
Some of them, yeah, some of them are coming to me after that a lot, and some of them are coming to me and they already have dogs and they're just looking to add another one, like already have livestock guardian dogs. Have, or maybe they lost their dog and they need a new one or whatever. Had a client recently who has, she had two Great Pyrenees and one of them died, I think kind of suddenly. He was probably only about 7 or 8 years old. So she needed a partner for her older female, who's about 9, I believe. But she knew, so her dogs were wonderful guardian dogs, but they were just kind of backyard breeder type dog situations. So she already kind of knew she was looking to do things differently. I will get that. We want to do things differently this time
Got
kind of thing. So
Yeah.
she bought two puppies. But a lot of my people are first time, never had a livestock guardian dog, had absolutely no clue, maybe new to farming. Like, I get a lot of people who, I'm starting my farm. I don't even have livestock yet, but we'll be getting there soon or whatever. Like, I've got deposits on puppies for litters in the future that aren't even born yet or even bred yet because they already bought their farm. They're planning to bring sheep home or chickens or whatever in the spring, or they're working on their fencing or something like that. So those are the best. Those are the absolute best when they're planning ahead. They've already figured out that they're going to need protection for their livestock and they're getting things all in place. The other one you get is, oh crap, something came in and ate a bunch of my animals. Now I need something today, like, and I do always have like some older puppies or older dogs. So try to have dogs available for that oh crap situation.
Right. Yeah.
But I much prefer the ones that plan ahead.
They do make better owners most of the time. Yes,
Oh,
absolutely.
it helps you to know, and it's really
Yeah.
nice to know that it's not like the pet market where you kind of have to go on faith a little bit more, I think, because people do suddenly need a dog. So it's not like that somebody's gonna, with a pet, they're thinking about getting a puppy, so you can. I'll hear breeders say, yeah, I don't breed a litter till I know that all the puppies are sold or whatever. And I'm like, that just doesn't work, because if somebody needs a dog, like their dog died and they need a dog, so
Right.
I like to have
Yeah.
some dogs available.
And I've seen too with the market shift, people don't, a lot of times they're afraid to put money down until a dog is like born and they want to see and they want to know they can get a certain dog or something. And that I do see that a little bit more in the last year or so. May
I saw it
happen.
a lot during COVID and after COVID and all that, but I think
Yeah.
it's starting to shift a little bit. I'm starting to get some.
Yeah, well, I never had that before. And nobody cared about waiting. And then now they were like, well, I'll just wait till they're on there. So like it has been more work for me on my side, at least with my customers, to
That's me.
get them to understand that like you get the best choice in the litter, you get the best option, the most time working and preparation, all this stuff. But it is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but you've done a
Well,
killer job with marketing. Like your Facebook group is awesome because I think you're really serving a need in the world of this breed. People need to understand
yeah.
them. And then
Yeah.
but then that's leading to like good sales for you, right?
Yeah. The Facebook group doesn't really lead to sales that much. I don't think it has led to any sales. Um, because most of the people on there either already have a dog or they're thinking about it, but they're in the affordable dogs category. It
Yeah.
might eventually lead, but it's really more of a serving a need for people.
Mhm.
Um, and I do try, I'm trying more lately when people have questions, I try to like really quickly write a blog post about it. Or if I already have a blog post, that's better because I don't have to do a lot. And so here's a link to this. Your answer is here. So they're going back to my website
Right? So you
answer
are
their
using the
questions.
group to propel your SEO and that's
Yes,
good.
all that. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because what I would do is I would find myself answering the same questions over and over to people. And I have a really always have had this thing of making really long posts, lots of stuff. And I'm like, and I would copy and paste it and save it, say, I'll make this into a blog post later. And now I'm like, no, let me make the blog post real quick and then just share a link to or make an FAQ. I started a FAQ on my website. And so I'll just do a FAQ. I'll take their question, put it as the question, and then answer it. And then I'll say, here you go, here's your answer. And I'll chit chat back and forth with more particular stuff, but I try to at least have some element where I can point it back to my
Love that.
website
I love
somehow.
that. And then, so how do you get people to get on your list then? So now you've got people and you're getting at
Oh,
least the traffic.
yeah. So I I started out as a goat breeder. I wasn't planning to breed the dogs. And so for a long time, the focus of my business was goats, and I still do breed. I breed mini Nubians and Nigerian dwarfs. So from the very beginning, I had a website. And I always listened to lots of podcasts and books and stuff about marketing and read blog posts and all that kind of stuff. So I knew very early on that website. I knew that that was very important. People put all their stuff into Facebook or, and they'd say, how are you selling goats or how are you selling puppies on Facebook? I can't sell. And I'm like, I don't sell on Facebook. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all of that. That's just for getting people to know you, know who you are, know, like, and trust factor, whatever. But I always had the website and I would always point people back. If people had a question about, like, if they were interested in a puppy or a goat and they had questions or wanted to see, what do you have, whatever, I don't send them pictures. I send them a link to my website. There they are. They're all there. You can go there. So that helps. The more you're sending that out, the more people are finding you and they're building your SEO and your ranking and whatever. I have a new website for the Maremmas. I recently started on WordPress, thanks to you. But my old website is Weebly. It ranks really, really super well just because I've always promoted it and I blog a lot and whatever. So if you do a Google search on Maremmas or mini Nubians or Nigerians, my stuff comes up a lot. Now I'm trying to get that to my new site
Yeah.
because I did split the dogs. But the email, that's I've only been doing the email list for about a year and a half. To
Mhm.
start it in May of last year. Um, I started, hearing about email marketing and just over and over, Amy Porterfield, all these different people, email marketing, that's the thing, that's the thing. And I was like, I really think this is something. I really got to figure this out. So I got the free convert kit. I think it was May of 23 was when I started. And
Mhm.
I got the free convert kit thing. And then I very quickly went up to paid because I learned there were things you could do, automations and things to save yourself time.
Yeah.
And I haven't put a ton of effort into it, but I do what I can. Same with
Mhm.
social media. I do what I can. And it's grown to about 650 people.
Wonderful.
Um, and just recently. And so same thing, I try to do the lead magnets. I put pop-ups on my website. I post it on my business page. I have my main business page and I have a couple smaller ones that aren't really super active. There's a Maremma info one. And then I have the groups. I post in the groups and whatever. The best thing that I've had for getting people on my email list has been a quiz. I have a quiz through Interact. It's called Is a Maremma Right for You? And that thing has gotten me almost 400 subscribers.
Wow.
It's been amazing. And I have a newer quiz, Adopt or Shop, that I haven't done too much with, but it's converting pretty well already. So the quizzes are the best. And I have a little email sequence that they go through. So yeah, just keep putting, I've run a few paid ads here and there. I'll run a paid ad. If I do a paid ad, I'm not doing a paid ad to try to get people to buy a dog or something like that. I'm just trying to get them to take my quiz or what, go to my website or whatever. But I'll just do like 25 or $30 at a time. I'm not into gambling, so I don't do like spend $500 on an ad. So
Yeah.
it's mostly been organic.
Mhm. And then
And so yeah.
how do you do the emails then? So what do you use in your emails? What do you put in your newsletter?
So in the beginning, like most people, you're like, okay, I started this email list. Now I don't know what to do with it. What do I do? I took a farm marketing course last year. Um, it was a really expensive program. It was a year-long program with all kinds of courses and stuff. And there was a coaching aspect, which I never did my own coaching. I just never got around to it. You could get so many sessions of coaching, and I didn't really do it, but I listened to you could listen to all the other coaching, and it really helped me a lot. It helped so much with mindset.
Mhm.
Like her big thing was people, if people aren't buying your dog, there's this one thing she said one time. Um, it's not because they can't afford it. She would say, they're not buying your dog because they need a dog or your goat or whatever. It's what they get. It's the peace of mind, it's the joy, it's the whatever, healthy food for their family, whatever. So all that stuff helped a lot. And it helped me really persevere when things were rough and animals weren't selling or whatever. I'm like, no, my dogs are worth it. I'm not dropping the price. I'm going to stick to it. And so that helped. And she had stuff about email marketing. So that's where I first really kind of, and also I did story brand, so I learned stuff from there. So I kind of built from there. Um, and so in the beginning, it was just maybe once a month, maybe a couple times a month. And I've finally grown it to where I do it every week. And
Mhm.
it just depends on what's going on. I would like to have it planned out ahead, but I just never get that far. So I'm usually just kind of like, whatever's going on that week. I'm just more of a friendly, conversational, hey, it's really hot. How's it there? Because I hate hot weather. Like the weather finally changed, whatever. And I'll tell whatever's happening. I try to have a blog post as much as I can, a new post or maybe an old post that I can link to. I'll tell whatever story. A couple weeks ago, this guy ran off the road and barreled through our property, our front uh, yard. It's not fenced or anything. And he barreled through. He took out a light pole that we have these decorative light poles with horses jumping on them, hit a tree and hit one of my pasture fences. It was insane. It's a wonder he wasn't killed. It's a wonder nobody was in my front yard, nobody was killed or whatever. Anyway, so I told that story. And I made a little video because I had been out there videotaping and I was filming and I took pictures. I was out in my pasture because he hit my pasture fence where my puppies are, the front. And so I'm out in the pasture, like videotaping the dogs barking at this truck that just has like landed right at, it broke the top rail. We have pipe fencing with horse mesh on it, and it broke the top rail. So the dogs are like, what the heck? So I made this quick little video that I posted on Instagram and YouTube. And I shared that video and told that little story of this crazy thing that happened this week. We had a farm crash. That's what I called it, a farm crash. So I just put stuff like that.
Yeah, so you're kind of
But
like it's just updates, right? Updates and blog
it's
post
just
articles and
yeah. Yeah. And once in a while I'll post, we got goats for sale or we got puppies or whatever. I'm trying to get better about that. I learned a lot from some stuff. I listened to some of your courses like recently, the one with Tori, which
Mhm.
I had listened to, but I went back through it again and I was like, oh man, yeah, I need to really pay attention to this. So I'm trying to get more, but I don't do a lot of selling. I'm just mostly everyone has a link to my puppy page and a link to my goat stuff and my training. I do training consultations too for livestock guardian dogs. So there's links there. They know they can get it, but it's mostly just, sharing training tips or information or just conversational or whatever. Sometimes if there's like a podcast I listen to that I think's really good, I might share a link to that. I'm going to share yours. Definitely the breeder, not just this one, but I find all the breeder ones really fascinating.
Good.
So people should learn what ethical breeding is, no matter what type of dog, even if it's not.
Mhm.
But I also always invite people to reply back. I always say, sometimes it's a particular thing, like I might ask a question, what did your dog do? Or what did this or that or over? But it's always just, hey, if you have anything you want to say, if you have a question, a training question, a general question, whatever, just reply back. And they do a lot. I love it. It's like, it's this deeper connection you can get that you don't get on social media. And I have so many, and I save them all, and I save them and I'll maybe use them later if there's a thing, but they reply back and people tell me, oh, thank you so much for sending me the emails. I just love getting them or whatever. I get people who are saying, one day I'm going to get one of your dogs. I got this guy, he's like a retired military, and one day he wants a Maremma. He's not in a position where he can have one now, but he's like, when I do, I'm gonna get one from you, whatever. Some of my own puppy clients will reply. I have this client named Dave in Texas. I absolutely love Dave. His wife is Susan. Um, they bought they have 55 acres in Texas. They bought two of my puppies um almost 2 years ago. They'll be two in January. And he was getting coyotes were coming onto his property. He has free range chickens and he had around 300 chickens. He had lost half of his flock because in broad daylight coyotes were coming on and grabbing those birds and taking them off. I'm talking to him on the phone and he's out there with the shotgun trying to get those coyotes away. And he called me, he contacted me about, he told me that he had been watching the movie Oddball. I don't know if you know, there's this Disney movie called Oddball, and it's about Maremma sheepdogs. There is a true story. There's a true thing in Australia. It's called I can't remember the exact name of, but it's the Maremma Project. There's this little island, I think New Zealand. Anyway, they have these little penguins and they were almost decimated by foxes. It was down to like 12 or something because the foxes, it was real low tide and the foxes could come onto the island and they were eating the penguins and taking them, like they were almost extinct. And this chicken farmer in New Zealand or Australia, I think it's New Zealand, or I don't know. Anyway, this chicken farmer somehow got the idea that we should use Maremmas to guard, they should use Maremmas to guard the penguins. And they did. And they brought them back from extinction. They completely, I don't know how many there are now, but there's probably maybe 300 or something like that. And it's just amazing. This happened like a decade or more ago. I think the original dogs recently died or one of them did or something. So anyway, Disney made a movie about it called Oddball. Um, it's adorable, cute movie. Movies, they're not completely factual, but it's cute and it's really good. And a lot of rescue people don't like that movie because they said when that movie came out, everybody wanted a Maremma, just like everybody wanted a Cocker Spaniel with Lady and the Tramp or whatever. But I think it's great. I think it's, whatever. So anyway, he saw that movie and he said to Susan, we got to get some of those dogs. That's
Yeah.
what we need. That's what we need. So he did. They contacted me and, it's a whole process of talking to people and answering questions and all that. And they got those two dogs. Their names are Bear and Chief. And they were 9 months old when they went to their farm. And now they're almost two. They'll be two in January. And they're unbelievable. He sends me videos and pictures all the time. He tells me these funny stories and sends me, and the dogs, I was even amazed at my own puppies because very quickly he had those 9 or 10 month old puppies out he bought new birds to replace, the birds that he lost. So he's got these puppies out and about 300 chickens and they're just sitting there like just like chilling with the chickens.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. And he has cows and they hang out with the cows. He's got this one cow, his first cow named Pearl. And Pearl, in the beginning, he would put the dogs in an old converted chicken coop, until they kind of got used to where they were. And Pearl would come over to the gate every morning, like, where's my dogs? I want them to come out and play. So now they run loose and whatever. And they're fantastic guardians. And so he almost always will email me back when they get the email, and then he'll tell me some crazy story. He told me on Thanksgiving, his dogs found a deer head that somebody, because hunting season, people throw their, I was just dying. So it's like this connection you get with people, and it's just really cool. I mean, I use a lot about him, a lot of Dave's stories, Dave's dogs. I say Dave's dogs stories. He had video of them out in the pond. Like he said, this is the Loch Ness monster out there in the pond in August when it's really hot, whatever. But it's just fun. It's
Oh,
fun, not every person wants to send you stuff and talk to you and whatever all the time because people are busy. I respect that. I'm fine with that. But I do have a lot of clients who do. I hear from them a lot and I'd love it. I always say it's like you're being invited into the family when you get a dog from me. If you don't want to be super participated, that's fine. That's, but if you do, I love it. I love videos. I love updates. I love, you know, all that stuff. So,
it's so fun, isn't it? It's so nice. It's just nice to see what your dogs are doing, what they were intended to do, and they're bringing
yeah.
joy to people's lives and helping them, whether that's peace of mind, they can sleep without worrying about their animals. I mean, it's beautiful.
Right. Yeah. And you feel like you still know them. Like that dog, Oliver, he was from my first litter. And I have his sister because I kept a puppy from the second litter. So they're full siblings. And Polar, she is my best livestock guardian dog. I did everything right with her. She had the parents who were great dogs, but she got a better socialization even than they did. And she's just wonderful. Like you could put her with baby chicks and she
Mhm.
is perfect. And so whenever I see any pictures or videos of Oliver, he looks so much like Polar and he acts like Polar and his mannerisms and all. And I just think I see there's videos they've sent me or pictures or whatever, and I just love it. I watch them over and over because I'm like, I just love this dog. And I've never seen him since he left my farm. I've seen them, they've come back to visit because they live near me and they've come back to visit puppies and stuff like that. But I've never seen Oliver since then, but I feel like I still know him. I still like he feel like he's just and I've seen their girls. They got Oliver when their girls were little and they live on 5 acres and it's kind of off a highway. So people driving by, whatever. And they got the dog to protect their chickens, but also to protect their children.
Mhm.
And they had one special needs daughter and they were just worried that random strangers might pull up and they can't see the whole property from the house and whatever. So she told me, she came to me and she's like, we've never bought a dog from a breeder ever. We didn't believe in that. We believed in adopting. She brought her mother with her and her mother was like, why are you buying a dog? You should not buy a dog from a breeder. You should be adopting a dog. But she was like, I need this dog to protect my chickens and to protect my children. And I'm not going to trust just any random dog. And she tells me, I hear from her sometimes, or I run into her for a while. Her daughters did ballet with some of my granddaughters. They've grown up now. Her kids are older now, but she would say, oh, we just love that dog. I'd ask her kids, how's Oliver? Oh, he's wonderful. We just love him. So I'm like, I just love that. Um,
Yeah.
it's really special.
So
So,
rewarding. It makes
yeah.
it all worth it. It makes it all worth
Yeah, that's what you do it for. That's why you do it.
it. Hmm.
It's why you do it. And I know people, breeders, and also trainers, because I train, because of in the training world, who get into animals. They'll say they get into animals, breeding or training or whatever, because they don't like people. You can't do that. If you're working with dogs, at least, you have to also like people because dogs come with owners. And if you're just trained, I know people who got out of breeding because they really love dogs. They really love breeding or training or whatever, but they realized they had to work with clients and it didn't work for them, for their
Right.
personality,
Oh, it's very
and
true.
it,
Mhm.
not that all people are easy to work with, but they're just like dogs. They're all different. You have to learn to be understanding and
No, it
accommodating
is.
and
It's very different. I mean, people are just a different animal to work with. Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. So
Oh. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. If you had advice you wanted to give to a new breeders, other breeders, what is something that you just think you'd love to share?
Um, well, it's a breeders or breeders of livestock guardian dogs.
Neither.
Breeders of well, for breeders of livestock guardian dogs, I would say do not get into this if you don't think you're also a trainer, because you are. When you're raising pets, because my puppies don't leave at 8 weeks old. The
Mhm.
minimum age they leave at is 12 weeks old. And a lot of them are older than that. 5 months to, 3 months to a year old is probably somewhere in that range. Sometimes I have older. So you are a trainer. If you can't be a trainer, you shouldn't be training those dogs. If you can't coach, I think this is true of any breeder. You need to be able to coach and advise your clients. But especially of livestock guardian dogs, because, a lot of breeders of companion dogs will say, take your puppy to a trainer, which is really great if they're sending them to a good
Mhm.
resource for training. But training with livestock is a whole different thing. And
Yeah.
they need a lot of support and a lot of help. And if you can't provide that, if you can't start your puppies properly and you can't provide that support to your client, I feel like it's unethical to be breeding. I don't know that people mean to be that, but they need help. That's less dogs would be in bad situations and less owners would struggle if
Mhm.
we were doing it right.
And I don't
And
think you
then
need
the
to be
other,
perfect too. Like it's a learning curve. You're going to get better as a breeder. You won't be perfect in the beginning, but I think you need to believe you'll get there where you can support your owners. I agree with you.
yeah. Yeah. And so like I don't sell puppies with breeding rights unless like I require them to do health test. I sell all my puppies for the same price. I don't charge extra for breeding rights, but I sell them on limited registration. Luckily, with the Maremma Club, we can do limited registration, but we can change it later if we want to. So they
Mhm.
go on limited registration. The owner has to, test the dog like hips at a minimum. And then now I've recently added elbows and DNA testing. And then they have to take the Karen Pryor Academy Dog Trainer Foundations course or some equivalent higher. Like I've sold a few puppies to people who are already dog trainers. I've sold a puppy who's a Karen Pryor professional. She didn't need to take foundations because she already did all of it. But they have to take the training because I feel like you have to at least kind of have a basics before you need to be breeding those dogs that you're going to have to train and support. And then now I've recently also changed it to like you need to have raised at least a team, at least a pair of livestock guardian dogs successfully to maturity before you even consider breeding, because you won't know what you're getting into and what your clients will be getting into. No need to even talk about it, And it might be the same dogs you bought. You buy dogs from me, they're limited, and then you come back and you say, okay, we're ready to do the breeding thing. Can we do that? And we say, go test your dogs, go make sure you've taken this course, and then we'll talk. But yeah, be prepared. And also, the other thing is, you have to just have faith. You have to persevere because it can be really hard, especially if your dogs are higher. My dogs are higher than I don't know of another breeder who charges, like I know of some that are probably close to my range. Um, Maybe the same now, but most of them are a lot less. When I was breeding unregistered dogs, I was selling my unregistered dogs for less than what a lot of people were selling their registered dogs for. My last unregistered puppies went for 2,500 to 3,000, and there are people breeding registered dogs for 1,500 or 1,200 or whatever.
Mhm.
So you have to have faith when you're doing that, because most people are going to say, well, why can't I just get a cheap dog and what does it matter and whatever, and you just have to keep waiting for those right homes. But what I found is, got this dog and he's getting older, and I really wish he was sold, and oh my gosh and whatever, but then when they finally do get the home, it's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. It's just exactly where they were meant to be. It just took a lot longer than I would have liked,
That happens
but
too. Yeah.
you know I mean, most people breeding companion dogs are not going to want to keep their dog for a couple years or 9 months or whatever, but because mine are outside, it's a little bit easier,
Yeah.
but not simple.
No, but it gets easier though, I think, right? As the website is built and people are more educated, you're probably getting more and more people.
Yeah, and I'm starting to see the email list converting finally. That was another thing. Because you'd hear all this, every $1 you spend on email marketing, you get $40 back or something. But for social media, you get 10 cents back or whatever. But what I learned was if your thing you're selling, no matter what it is, if it's a higher priced, conversion is going to take longer. So if you're selling, fancy watches, they're going to convert a lot slower than if they're buying, a $10 watch. So the same
Right.
with the dogs. I'm not going to sell the dogs as fast, but they start to get to know you, they start to like you, then trust you and whatever. And then finally, I've started, I don't know exactly how many, but I think I've seen at least 2 or 3 people who did end up buying puppies. And usually a lot of times people buy two. Um, so who found me through my email list first, or maybe they found me on social media or my website, but they got on my email list and then they got to know me and then they bought. So now I'm after the last some of those classes you had that I listened to, I'm like, okay, I got to redo my funnel because I've been sending people the wrong way. I've been sending them to Honeybook, which has been fantastic, absolutely fantastic, using Honeybook, but I need to get them on the email list first, make sure they're on the email list first. And then if they're ready to buy, they can quickly go into Honeybook. But
Absolutely.
if they're not, at least get them on the email list so they kind of get to know and figure out and whatever. And I was getting a lot of people coming to Honeybook who shouldn't have been there yet. Because they come in and they were just looking around. You'll know they're just looking around because you send them stuff and they don't say anything. They just
Right.
should never have been there. They should have gone to the email list first. Kit and Kit. That's what I use. So yeah, get that going. Get the email list, the website first, email list next, social media if you have time. It's great.
Yeah, right.
Don't, don't, yeah, because, and yeah, a lot of those social media, they're not going to buy. Like I got a lot of people that follow. I think I have about 4,600 people on Instagram. Every once in a while, I'll get someone who comes to me because they found me on Instagram. I followed you on Instagram. I probably get more people from goats through Instagram than dogs, but I do. Like I had someone from Texas who bought 2 puppies from me a couple years ago and she found me on Instagram. So it helps,
Mhm.
but it's not the email list and the website are the most important,
I agree with
really.
you.
And the website meaning work it. You got to work it. You
Yeah,
got
like you add new information, keep your pictures updated,
yeah.
add new questions to your FAQ. If you got
Yeah.
time, let's start working on those blog posts. Like I love that. I think
Yeah.
you're a shining example of really making your website work for you.
Thank you.
So, mhm.
I actually kind of like it. Like it's kind
Yeah,
of a
you kind of gets fun, doesn't it? It's kind of
fun.
fun. Yeah.
And oh my gosh, WordPress is amazing. I am obsessed. And I wanted to have a WordPress site for years. I got Weebly first because I heard WordPress is too hard. Don't do WordPress. It's so
Yeah.
hard. And I, and so Weebly was real easy. So I got it. And it was, I mean, I had to figure it out, but it was pretty quick. But it's just so limited. And then it started getting really glitchy and difficult. Like I still do, because I still have my Weebly site. I ended up putting my dogs on I made a new URL for the dogs and a whole new WordPress site for the dogs. And I left the goats on the Weebly site. And I had this terrible, terrible problem on Weebly where it just randomly mixes up my pictures. So I would tell somebody, go look for this goat's available. And they go to the goat and they say, there's a dog on that page. Or they go look for a dog. There's a goat on that page. Or there might be a bottle of shampoo on that page because I have a blog post about shampoo or something. So it would just randomly, and it still does it. I've kind of figured out how to make it not as bad, but it still does it sometimes. So you think your website's perfect, and then somebody goes in and they tell you something's not right on that page. So it just got really difficult and just
Yeah.
so once I figured out the WordPress, it was when you had that podcast about splitting off for different breeds, and I was like, I don't have different breeds, but I have the goats and I have the dogs, and I think I
Different
need
species. Yeah.
species, even more than different breeds. And so I was like, oh, I can do that because I didn't want to change because I was worried about messing up my SEO because my old site does really, really like if you type in Maremmas or like Maremma puppies for sale or newbie, mini Nubians or whatever, you're going to probably see sometimes the very first hit of all, and at least on the first page. And I was just really worried that I would lose that. I didn't want to lose that. So then when I realized I could make, because you have your rat terriers on a different URL from your GSPs, and I'm like, oh, I can make Prancing Pony Maremmas, and then see Prancing Pony Farm can still be the goats, and then that way I have time to build it slow. And I could not figure out the 301 redirects. I think Weebly just won't allow them. It will allow you to redirect within Weebly, but I couldn't get it to redirect
You would
to
probably have to transfer your domain to a new host, potentially if you bought it through Weebly. That might be what's required.
yeah, I don't know. I just couldn't figure it out. So what
I
I
can
did,
help you with it when you're ready.
you can tell me. But what I ended up doing was because I still have the Maremmas kind of listed
Mhm.
on the old site, but basically I took most of those pages and made them into external like
Link.
pages, the external link. So when you go on a dog page on there, it goes to my new site.
That's
So
awesome.
it's kind of a cheat code to get around it, but it's helping. It's because people will find me through there, but it'll take them to the new site. But there's just so much stuff. I'm just having so much fun with WordPress. There's just so much cool stuff you can do.
Oh yeah.
I spent a lot of money on Black Friday sales for plugins.
Good, good. Yeah.
Like, I
We
can
have a
do this,
whole
I can do that.
Yeah, I have a whole course coming out next
On
year
what?
on WordPress and building your website there. So it's gonna be
There's
great.
just it's amazing. Like, so there's this thing called blog to social. Is really cool because every time you write a blog post, then you can share it to all your social stuff, but you can do it all at once, and it'll kind of like set each one up, and so it's formatted properly for each different thing, and it'll share it to your Google Business profile, your Google Business
Oh,
listings. So I never was good about updating my Google Business, and that helps. So now, and it links to both of them. I have it to because I made a new Google Business
good.
listing. So I can share everything to my old Google business thing and my new one. So there'll be like a post on there, and then they'll be on Instagram and Facebook and whatever, so that's really cool. It's like a one click,
I love
and anything to get you doing stuff more
that.
without having to, shortcuts. That's another big thing. I had two clients in 1 week come to me to buy animals, goats or dogs or whatever it was. And a lot of times I sell goats, especially to people who are breeding too, or and they said, I'm just amazed at your processes. You're like all your little, and I'm like, you're just so organized, whatever. And I said, yeah, that's because I have ADHD. If I'm not super organized, nothing will happen. Like, it'll just be a mess. So I'm always looking for hacks, ways to streamline it
You
and
do. You're
make
always
it.
bringing something new to the table. I love it.
Some of the stuff I've learned from you, like Honeybook, that literally was the biggest game changer. I'm sure there's other ones that are good too, but that one, it's just if you're breeding anything and you're dealing with clients, if you're breeding goats, if you're breeding whatever, it's just to have, because I had templates where I could answer, like they fill out this questionnaire on my website, and then I get an email, and then I send a templated email, whatever, but it never really worked right. They were just, so having it all, just go to this contact form, and then boom, you're in the system, and
Yeah.
it just makes a huge difference.
So
So,
fast. I know. I really I was right on the verge of having to hire somebody or figure out something better.
yes,
And I really was
yes,
not in a place to hire someone. And I was like, man. And Honeybook was like done. Like it was like, oh my
yeah.
gosh, I didn't need to hire someone anymore.
That's exactly it, because I am to a point where I do need to hire, like everybody I know has got a VA lately, and I'm like, I really need a VA, but what I really need is a farmhand. And I had a farmhand for a few months and it didn't end up working out, but it was really great while I had them. So that'll be my first hire when I do. But there, all that office stuff and all that marketing and whatever, if you can find systems and different things that will help you do that, it's worth it. I have this one person a client, she's bought a lot of animals from me, dogs and goats, and she's like, you're spending money on this and you're spending money on that, and I'm like, but it costs money to run a business, and if I can save time, and get things done more efficiently. I use the planner app for social media because I finally figured out that just works a lot better. I can stash everything in there and then I can go back and schedule it and whatever, a scheduler thing. So yeah, any system you can find that saves you time. And you don't have to, like when you hire an employee, you got to do the taxes and all that stuff, where when you're just paying somebody for an app or a software or whatever, it's just a business expense. It's not
a little simpler. Yes.
Yeah, a little simpler.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Good. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been such a joy hearing your story and all the new stuff, because you're always working on something. It's always fun to talk to you. So,
always in project.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Thank you so much, Julie.